Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar where we talk to anyone who is a formally trained designer or a DIYer, just to give a little bit more quick, easy training tips to get your beautiful design and ideas out the production line exactly what you hoped to see and do. So if you're an experienced designer, you're welcome to, probably this is a refresher, but maybe from a very long time ago. And if you're a DIYer, or maybe you work with a lot of Upwork or Fiverr types, these are just some pro tips to help you communicate and get the outcome that you're looking for. And so just as a friendly reminder, today is being recorded. So thank you guys for consenting to that. And if you're watching this recording, go ahead and check the settings. You can speed up, slow down. Everyone has different learning styles. And so with that, I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into our plan for today. So we're just going to cover real briefly a little background about colors, sizes, some AI pitfalls that we're seeing, answer some questions, and then do our raffle at the end. So with that, let me start by introducing myself. My name is Marissa Eon, and I am the owner here at Fast Signs of Springfield in Virginia, just outside of DC. And I've been in the business for 7 years now, and I really love my part of the job where I'm a translator between experts, between business owners, and just making it all really meet the mission of what they're looking for. So I'm not a designer by training, but I dabble, and I have run all my machines. I have currently 6 different machines in my shop, and they all have very different requirements. So again, this is how could anybody be expected to set up the files for success without this background knowledge, is why I wanted to put this together. So and with that, let's just jump right into the color discussion. So first we start with a pop quiz, and I know everyone here is muted, so if you go ahead and just use the chat feature and fill out the numbers. Here's the first. All good training starts with a quiz. That's what I've been told. So when working with clients and production facilities, what color spec language should we use? Blue? Everybody knows what shade that is. Hex codes, come on, it's 2026. RGB? CMYK, paint swatches, Pantones, PMS. What is all this language? So please put in the chat what you guys think. Oh, I see some number ones. Wouldn't that be easy if we all were on the same page about what color blue is? Yep. Hex code, yep, that's very popular. Okay, well, let's go ahead and take a look at, for the purposes of output for production, PMS and Pantones are the only universal international color standards. So let's go back to that. So we said all blue colors. Look how many shades of blue. This is just one swatch. You guys know there's billions and billions of blues. So this is why we have to get more precise in our language and use some specs to make sure we're on the same page. So bear with me for 30 seconds, a little bit of science. CMYK and RGB, most of us learned this in like 5th, 6th grade, but it's okay if you don't remember. But the way that pigments act is the CMYK scale. So at the basis of all pigments is yellow, magenta, and cyan, and of course black for the different shades of darkness. And when you mix them together, if you mix them all together, you know, you're just going to get a dark, muddy mess. Whereas light is opposite. Light is based on the red, green, blue scale, and when you mix them all together, you get white. So that's why they behave very different scientifically. And if you think of, like, if you go to the paint store and you see the CMYK machines where they're adding the dots, every machine and every manufacturer has a different pigment that they're working with. They have a different spectrum of colors that they can hit. And so CMYK is not the universal language for matching colors because it's really just machine dependent. And that's pretty impossible for any user to use. But if you're working with a good production shop, you can always stop it in person and they'll have printouts so you can see what the actual colors look like to help you match. Again, every machine is different, so that one's hard. RGB, so this one's going to be great for your digital media. If you're creating something for an online only platform or a digital monitor, that's when you're going to use the RGB scale. So when you're an illustrator, for example, check your document settings. Is it set to CMYK or is it set to RGB? if the output's a physical output, you're going to want to CMYK as the settings that you're going to use, and toggle back and forth between them and look at the difference. Even on your computer monitor, you're going to notice a big difference. So RGB would be like your digital monitor. So this is why the codes that you, the colors that you see on your monitor, they're different monitor to monitor, but they try to get as close as possible, all using the RGB screen. And then we've got hex codes. Well, you guys know that is the digital HTML-based code that gets you the digital name for colors on how it's displayed. So this is most used in websites, website design, but digital media, they'll all use hex codes for uniform branding. So not helpful for production output files at all. So like we said, every monitor is different, and it's all based on the light spectrum, not the physical spectrum. So, all right, now we've got paint codes. We've got Benjamin Moore, we've got Sherwin-Williams, we've got whatever Home Depot and Lowe's is selling. We've got Matthews. There's so many paint manufacturers are out there. And it really applies to any manufactured product. So it could be an acrylic, could be a aluminum product, and every manufacturer is going to have their own unique colors. So even if you say, I need this to be atmospheric blue, well, Benjamin Moore might have their very own atmospheric blue. So you're always going to use the manufacturer's name and use their proprietary colors. So when you get information and you're communicating what's really required, make sure you use those full specs. For example, the SW6505, very technical, but very precise for matching. And lastly, at the end of the day, how do we get colors to come out of our printer, our fabrics, our papers, to be the brand standard? So we're going to use a Pantone color. And like we said, this is an international standard. You have to buy a physical book for matching. You can use some colors online, but we just talked about the dangers in that. So again, if you're working with a good shop, they'll have some physical copies that you can look at and work with the customer. Amazon does sell these Pantone books if you're professionally using this often, so that you can really make sure that you've got it dialed in. So if you have this Pantone book, you can take it to a paint store. You can color match to the paint. If you have this Pantone book, you can print off your printer in your CMYK scale, and you match it to the physical book, and you change the settings until you get it dialed in just right. So color matching is really important for a brand, and PMS is the only uniform way to communicate that. All right. Last with color. Okay, well, like I said, I'm not a designer, so I couldn't tell you about color theory, but there's a whole science behind it, and you definitely should trust a trained designer to really come up with the good colors. But I will tell you, from a production output perspective, you really have to worry about the contrast. And so just looking at this screen, you can kind of see if you use the wrong color combination, it hurts your eyes, the red and green vibration. I mean, do you guys see it dancing on your screen? Yep, you do. Yep. So there is some science to it. So that's why you do want to trust a trained person. And there is a good percentage of the population who are colorblind. So there's some settings you can also play around with as a designer, add some textures to help with contrast, even for folks on the colorblind spectrum. But also, if you're hearing different answers from different people, chances are they're all not seeing the same colors the same way. So, and then if you look at this green and blue, that's a good example when, you have colors that are just too close on the color wheel. So they're just not providing that sharp contrast. And at the end of the day, you've got a message you're trying to get out, and so you want to be clear. So this is all about good readability. So what are some tricks to overcome that? Let me grab some water, 1 second. Thank you. So some of our design tools, we could add a drop shadow. As you can see on this top right side here, we've got the light green and yellow and orange are really close to each other, and they don't really pop against each other. But if you add a drop shadow, it just helps give it that little bit of oomph and contrast so that your eye can read it easier. You can add strokes. So this YouTube example is where they're adding a red stroke. So the white text It might show up really well against these dark green trees, but it's not going to show up well against the clouds. And it might be okay against the light green grass, but in any situation, your text is going over different colors. So the best way to make that pop is to add a stroke. And I like this bottom graphic because it kind of shows the same thing. Using the same color gradients and the same color just looks so beautiful, so clean, modern. It's in style right now. But if you add a little stroke, just look how much more it can pop against, and those colors are more impactful. So, and then if you're using like text and complex images, again, you have to worry about the image changing, so your text being hard to read. So some other tricks is just adding, some little backgrounds to help it. And so hopefully those help you kind of pick better colors in your designs when you're starting out. All right. Next, we have sizes. So remember, the goal here is readability. And so you have to really think about your audience. A lot of designers or DIYers, you're at your computer. It's right here. It's intimate. You can see everything. Everything's readable. What's the problem? And then you get the product and, you're just really surprised that it didn't work out. So number one, there's a technicality to it. So thinking of your audience here, we've got this letter visibility chart. You can find these charts online, but basically the farther away you are, the larger the font size has to be in order for you to read. If you're working with older audiences, think even bigger. That's been me. I'm in that category, trust me. And if you're driving, if there's movement, guess what? Same thing. So there's whole specs and science about that called the MUCTD standards. So that way, for example, highway signs are designed at the right heights and there's no guessing. But just think about that. Now on the small side, you want to think about like a business card. If you think about working on your computer and you've got it zoomed in, your business card is the size of your 24-inch monitor. You're like, it's perfectly clear. But as you all know, when it comes out your printer, 8-point font, that is hard to read. It might be hard for a printer to produce them. Much fine detail as well. So so make sure that you take advantage of your zoom settings to really see what it's going to look like in real life. So for this business card, you're going to want to, my trick, it's so low key, but I'll just hold up a business card right next to the window and zoom so that they're the same size. That way I know I'm apples to apples kind of in the moment, because every computer screen might have a little glitch with the zoom feature. So another little gotcha there. But yeah, so now as you're designing it, you're going to want to design it at full scale. So you can change in every program, whether it's PowerPoint, Google, Illustrator, Canva, you can change your artwork size. And so you want to go ahead and design it at that correct size. For example, a lot of people will design maybe in PowerPoint, and the default PowerPoint, again, is for screens, not for a printed project. So when you transfer all that hard, beautiful design and all the spacing and everything, well, it's going to either get squished together to get it on an 8.5 by 11, or it's the proportions are just not correct. So pro tip, save yourself a lot of heartache and redesigning. Go ahead and change your artboard from the very beginning. Again, you can Google how to do that, no problem. Okay, last part of sizes. So every production facility is going to have their different requirements, and most of these you can find right online wherever you're purchasing from, or with the company. They'll tell you up front. But go ahead and export them in the right file type that they request and in the right specs. So for example, if it's printing, again, you're going to use that CMYK scale, not the RGB scale. And that way when you save it, there'll be less issues. And then my pro tip is I always send 2 files. I send the raw one, so in case there's some little error, it's got the highest resolution, it's just the perfect file, I always send that one. Here at Fast Science, we love PDFs. PDFs work great. But I'm also going to send a flat file, the JPEG PNG type. That way, if somebody has a different computer program and it decides to throw a fit, it's not going to lose any information, and everybody can quality check it against what you expect. So, and most places do have a proofing process, and even between Apple and PC, there's still sometimes when you open files, different glitchy things. So it's always good to just send that little JPEG file as well, so that everyone's on the same page about what's expected. So those are some tips about the sizes. Again, your production facility is going to have recommendations as when do you need bleed? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. I'll tell you, for us, we have every machine here is different. So sometimes we need bleed, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we need crop marks, sometimes we don't. But that's all the part of, we call the pre-press process that we do in-house. So generally people will communicate that to you in advance. For us, we appreciate a little bit of bleed anytime it's a full color to the edge. If it's white on the edges, no big deal. But if it's a full color, full print, bleed is always nice so that we can get that just perfect on the output file. All right. All right, and with that, we're moving right along into the AI pitfalls. Who's using AI today? Go ahead and put that in the chat. Oh yeah, yep, definitely. Do you guys have a favorite provider? Yep, Canva, yep, ChatGPT, sure. Claude, okay, yeah. Yeah, so AI is a powerful tool, and we're not going to knock it, but it's just a tool. So as we are not robots yet, let's go ahead and talk about some of these pitfalls. So you are still always liable for ethical use of images, art, trademarks, etc. So, be careful. You just don't want to get into trouble. Definitely, it's a litigious society out there, so you still want to do that. But, just as a designer community, we just really want to stay ethical and respect people's art and creativity and not steal, plagiarize, etc. So make sure that you're aware of all of the rules and regulations in your area. And back to kind of one of my last bullet points, be transparent. Hey, I generate an AI, just tell everybody. Don't try to hide it or present it as your own. I think that's where a lot of people get into a lot of trouble. And of course, the rules are constantly changing. So, do your best to stay up on those. Okay. Next thing, tell it all of your specs. So it doesn't know what it doesn't know. So even if you're telling it I'm looking for a production file, give it your dimensions, give it your dots per inch that you need, give it your any other kind of spec that your production facility has given you, and just have it do it right from the beginning. Most of the time we see customers give us files from AI that are way too pixelated, way too low resolution to be blown up to the scale that they're looking for. And the pain of recreating those images digitally is the technology is not there yet. Hopefully it gets there, but it's pretty labor intensive. So we do have some tools that we can use to improve some images, but in general, just start with creating it at the correct size. But you got to tell AI that, otherwise they'll just give you some low res thing. All right, triple check spelling and grammar. We love the easiness of AI, but at the end of the day, it might not get all the nuances. So take a step back and triple check that spelling and grammar. All right, consider how hard it might be to make changes later. Maybe you're doing a roll-up banner for a special event coming up, but you want to change the messaging next month for the next event. So maybe ask it to create the background graphic, and then you go ahead and add your own text so you can change the dates. If you ask AI to do it just all at once, it's just a lot harder to edit. Hopefully technology comes along there, but for now it's still a little difficult. All right. And then lastly, QR codes. So they are beautiful, they're wonderful. I think it was mainly the only good thing that came out of COVID, but the QR codes. So be careful where you're getting your QR code from. Always test it with your phone, because some QR codes can be backed through paid sites, and they might have a free 15-day trial, but now you've printed this QR code and you plan on using it for 6 months. They're going to ask for a fee that whole time. Otherwise, the QR code will dead end and you will not be getting those customers that you were expecting. So that's my caution there on the QR codes. All right. Thank you guys so much. So far, we're doing good. And we are down to what kind of questions you have. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. and we'll do our raffle, but maybe I'll just make sure I end on the K through 4. So at the end of the day, we're sign experts, we're professionals, we help you with all sorts of production output needs that you have, and we're just keeping all these technical things in mind. So please reach out to us. If you follow us on social or check out our blogs, we're always putting out helpful tips and things, trying to set you guys up for success. And of course, we would love your business. Come, you can email us, you can call us, you can come in, we can do a virtual meeting just like this, but we would love to have you. And again, we're Fast Lanes of Springfield, right outside of DC. And I hope this was helpful to you guys. I'm going to stop the recording and go back to answering the local questions. Thank you so much.